right, so today we're going to look at the next type of special right triangle, Unit 6, Day 4. Remember, on Wednesday we said the 45, 45, 90 triangle comes from dividing a square with a diagonal. And we said the two legs would be exactly the same thing. And then the hypotenuse would be the leg times the square root of 2. So if the legs are 5, it would be 5, 5, 5 square root of 2. If the leg is 7, it would be 7, 7, 7 square root of 2. Okay? The only time that doesn't work is if your hypotenuse did not have a square root of 2 on it and you had to divide it out to get your two legs. Or if your leg did have a square root of 2 and you had to multiply it by another square root of 2. Okay? Alright. Today, we're going to look at 30, 60, 90 triangles, which doesn't come from a square. It comes from dividing an equilateral or equiangular triangle with an altitude. So we're going to be taking an equiangular or equilateral triangle and dividing it in half. Now, remember when you divide an equilateral or equiangular triangle with the altitude, it not only divides this angle up here into two congruent pieces, it also divides the opposite side into two equal pieces. Okay? So that means if I know how long this piece is, this piece here is the exact same length. Or I can think of that whole side of the triangle as x plus x, which is how much? 2x. So if this is equiangular, that means it's also equilateral. All my sides are 2x because it's equilateral. So then when I come over to the side and I split it down the center, when I divide it down the center, I know that this length here along the bottom, if I have a 90-degree angle here and a 60-degree angle here, if that is x, whatever it is, let's say these were both 5, then I know this length here would be 10. Hold on, my phone is ringing. Miss Bishop. Hello. Absolutely. Bye. Danity, you're being dismissed. Let me write you a pass. Here you go. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, sorry for the pause. So if the whole side was 10, so each of these little pieces are 5, then when I look at just half the triangle, that piece would be just 5, right? But the hypotenuse, this side here, comes from this whole side here. So if I know this leg here is x, then my hypotenuse has to be double that. Does that make sense? So then the only thing we don't know is my long leg. That's the only thing we don't know. Okay? Notice I called it the long leg. Let's talk about how I know that's longer, other than just looking at it and it looks longer. Okay? When I draw on the altitude, not only does it split the opposite side, it also splits this angle up here. So that means I have a 30-degree angle here. Remember, the Hinge Theorem says the bigger side is across from the bigger angle. The doors open wider, right? So I know that across from this small angle 30, this leg is going to be a shorter leg. And this leg over here is going to be a longer leg. Now, when I say short and long, that doesn't mean it's the longest side, because we know the hypotenuse is really the longest side. Right? So we need to figure out then, what is my long leg? Okay? What is the long leg? If the short leg is x and the hypotenuse is 2x, then what is the long leg? Remember when we did Pythagorean theorem, we said if we want to find the leg, we subtract in the square root and we square the other two sides. So if I want to find the long leg in my square root, I'm going to subtract the other two sides squared. And we said you always put the bigger number in first. We know the hypotenuse will be bigger because it's twice as big as the short leg. So I'm going to do 2x squared and then x squared. Notice I put the 2x inside parentheses because we need to remember we're squaring not just the x but also the 2. It's 2x times 2x. So then my long leg is the square root of 2x times 2x is 4x squared minus x squared. What's 4x squared minus 1x squared? Good, 3x squared. And remember we said on Wednesday you can split your square root if your things are multiplied or divided. You can't do it. I couldn't do it up here when I had subtraction, but I can do it here now that I'm multiplying 3 times x squared. So my long leg is going to be the square root of 3 times the square root of x squared. But we know what happens when I square a square root. It cancels out. So right here, these are going to cancel out. That's just going to be x. And the square root of 3 I can't do anything with, so it stays the square root of 3. So my long leg is x square root of 3. It will always be whatever the short leg is times the square root of 3. Every single time. So, when you look at a formula chart for 45, 45, 90, you're going to see x squared of 2. For 30, 60, 90, you're going to see the short leg, x, the long leg, x squared root of 3, and the hypotenuse, 2x. They put them in order from shortest side to longest side, so that's why the hypotenuse is on the end. So the x is the short leg, the x squared root of 3 is the long leg, and the 2x is the hypotenuse. We always find short leg first. That's going to make your life easier. Always find the short leg first. Okay? So when I look at number 1, my first example, my short leg, remember, is across from the 30. So here's my short leg. My short leg is 15. Always find the short leg first. Done. We found it because they gave it to us. So then my long leg is just that x times the square root of 3. 15 square roots of 3. We're going to leave it like that because we want exact answers. If you put that in your calculator, you get a long decimal, and then you have to round it. So there's rounding error, right? We don't want any error. We want complete exact answers, so we're going to leave it 15 square roots of 3. Your hypotenuse is 2 times x, so 2 times my x is 15. 2 times 15 is 30. Questions on 1? All right. Let's look at 2. Remember I said the first thing you always want to find first is the short leg. So that's across from the 30. Right here. They didn't give it to me. What did they give me? The hypotenuse or the long leg? The long leg. They said the long leg was 19 square roots of 3. So if this is x square root of 3, what was my short leg? 19. And then what's my hypotenuse if it's 2 times x? 38. Okay. Always find the short leg first. So across from my 30. Here's my short leg. Did they give it to me? No. What did they give me? They gave me the hypotenuse is 18. So what was x if 18 is 2 times x? 9. Which means what's my long leg? 9 square root of 3. It really is most of the time that easy. I did say most of the time. Just like yesterday, Sometimes our square root of 3, yesterday our square root of 3 was, or square root of 2, on Wednesday it was supposed to be on the hypotenuse, but sometimes it was on a leg, and so then we had to divide out the square root of 2. So here our square root of 3 is supposed to always be on the long leg, but sometimes it's in the wrong spot, so let's talk about what happens if our square root of 3 isn't where it belongs. Okay? So number 4, they gave me my short leg is 9 square roots of 3. So to figure out what my long leg is, remember the long leg is the short leg times the square root of 3. So it's the short leg times the square root of 3. What's 9 square root of 3 times square root of 3? So what's the square root of 3 times itself? Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is what? 3, right? If you're not sure why, let me show you, right? 3 times 3, that's really the square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. So 27 is my long leg. Does that make sense? Kind of almost just like yesterday or Wednesday with the square root of 2. When you multiply it by itself, it cancels the square root out. Because when you square it, it cancels the square root. Okay? Alright, so now I just need my hypotenuse. My hypotenuse is double the short leg. So if I have 9 square roots of 3 and I double that, how many square roots of 3 do I now have? 18 square root of, it's still square root of 3. 9 square roots of 3 plus 9 square roots of 3 is 18 square roots of 3. The square root of 3 kind of acts like an x, like a variable. Okay? On the next one, number 5, again, we want to find our short leg first. I almost always will do what I'm doing here where I draw the little dotted line leaving the 30-degree angle because sometimes my long leg doesn't look like my long leg when I look at a picture. Okay? Alright, so did they give me my short leg? No, what did they give me? Hypotenuse. The hypotenuse. They said my hypotenuse was 10 square roots of 3. I have to find my short leg first. If my hypotenuse is 10 square root of 3, what did I double to get to 10? 5. So my short leg is 5 square roots of 3. If my short leg is 5 square roots of 3, then my long leg is 5 square roots of 3 square roots of 3, which we know is really just 5 times 3, which is 15. All right. On number 6, here is my short leg. They didn't give it to me. What did they give me? The long leg, which is supposed to have a square root of 3 on it, but it doesn't, so I'm going to have to divide out that square root of 3. Without having to do all of that math, remember when you divide by a square root, you have to do what we called rationalizing to get the square root out of the bottom and all of the fun things. Can we look at the pattern and see what can I do to my long leg to figure out what my short leg is?
Divided by 3.
Divided by 3, right? Because up here we multiplied by 3 to get there. So if I take 18 divided by 3, but don't forget we need to still put a square root of 3 on it, because when we rationalize, that square root of 3 moved up. And then you just reduce. The reason I wanted you to see it as a fraction is because this number doesn't always reduce. Here, 18 is divisible by 3. Sometimes it doesn't reduce. If it doesn't, then you just leave it as whatever thirds. 1/3, 7/3, whatever it is, thirds. Don't change that one to a decimal because a third is a 0.3333333, or 0.6666666666666 rounds up to 7, right? And we don't want those. We want exact answers. So 18 divided by 3 is 6 square roots of 3. What's my hypotenuse? 12 square roots of 3. So 90% of the time, it's going to be one of these two patterns. Either your long leg is going to have the square root of 3 on it, and then you just take it off to get to your short leg, and you double it to get to your hypotenuse. Or your square root of 3 is going to be on the short and the long leg, and you multiply to get to the long leg, or if you have your long, you divide by 3 to get to your short leg. Okay? Always find your short leg first. Alright, so now we have them all mixed up. Number 7, what did they give me? The short leg, the long leg, or the hypotenuse?
Short leg.
Yay! That's what I wanted. If my short leg is 12 square roots of 3, then my long leg is 12 square roots of 3 square roots of 3, which is what?
12 times 3.
12 times 3, which is 36. Very good. If my short leg is 12 square roots of 3, what's my hypotenuse? 24 square roots of 3. Very good. Number 8. What did they give me on 8? Short leg is 14. If my short leg is 14, what's my long leg? 14 square roots of 3. If my short leg is 14, what's my hypotenuse? 28. Number 9, what did they give me? The short leg, the long leg, or the hypotenuse? Hypotenuse is 8 square roots of 3. Always find the short leg first. If my hypotenuse is 8 square roots of 3, my short leg was? Divide by 2, and it is? 4 square roots of 3. Which means my long leg is 4 square roots of 3 square roots of 3, which is? 12. 4 times 3. Number 10, what did they give me? Hypotenuse is 25. Find the short leg first. What's the short leg? 12.5, which I'm okay with that decimal because it's what we call a terminating decimal. There's nothing after the 5, right? It doesn't keep going. It's just 12.5, done. You could leave it if you didn't want to make it a decimal. You could leave it as 25 halves, and I'm okay with that. What's my long leg? 12.5 square roots of 3. Or 25 halves times the square root of 3. You could write it either way. If you leave it as a fraction, make sure it's a reduced fraction. And I don't mean mixed number, like 25 halves is reduced, right? But 20 halves would not be, right? All right, number 11. What did they give me on 11? They gave me the long leg. If my long leg is 7 square roots of 3, then my square root of 3 is in the right place. What's my short leg?
7.
And my hypotenuse?
14.
Number 12. What did they give me? Long leg. It doesn't have a square root of 3 on it, but it's supposed to. So I have to divide it out. What do I end up for my short leg when I divide out the square root of 3? 4 square roots of 3. So then my hypotenuse is 8 square roots of 3. Notice that's the same triangle as the one right above it. 4 square roots of 3, 12, 8 square roots of 3. We just started with a different side. Alright, number 13. What did they give me? Short leg. I like it when they do that. What's my long leg? What's my hypotenuse? Alright, number 14. What did they give me? The long leg is 24. It's supposed to have a square root of 3 on it, but it doesn't, so I have to divide it out. When I divide out the square root of 3, what does my short leg become? 8 square roots of 3, which means my hypotenuse is 16 square roots of 3. Number 15. What did they give me on 15? The hypotenuse is 20 square roots of 2. That's not a typo. Like 90% of the time it would be a typo with Miss Bishop typing, but I meant to put the wrong square root there. And not wrong, but the one that's not part of the pattern. If my hypotenuse is 20 square roots of 2, what's my short leg? 10 square roots of 2. And then my hypotenuse is the short leg, 10 square roots of 2, times the square root of 3. Because we're doing 30, 60, 90, so you always multiply by the square root of 3. Remember, you can multiply these two square roots together. It works with multiplication. It does not work with addition or subtraction. This becomes 10 square root of 2 times 3? 6. Which there's no perfect square that goes into 6. Right? My perfect squares are 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49. Right? There's no perfect square that goes into 6. So that means that is as reduced as it gets. 10 square root of 6. You don't see this sort of thing very often. You see it when, those of you who are here, can look up on the board and see an example of when you might see something like this. If you have a 45, 45, 90 attached to a 30, 60, 90, so you're going to end up with square roots of 2s and 3s in the same type of problem. That's where you'll usually see something like this. Okay? All right, your assignment is available for you in Schoology. Good luck. You can do it.